Welcome to Rico 12. I'm Justin B., your host and a child of an all-powerful and perfectly loving God and an addict living in the miracle of recovery one day at a time. Rico 12 is dedicated to exploring the common threads of addiction, sharing tools, and offering hope from those walking a similar path. We gather from diverse backgrounds, faiths, and locations to learn and support one another. Our speakers come to us from various fellowships and experiences demonstrating the universal principles of recovery. This is Rico 12 Speaker Meeting 332. Thank you for joining us live or on the recording later. Today's speaker is Troy O., a first-time Rico 12 speaker discussing the 4 things every recovering addict should know. And I look forward to hearing his message here shortly. But first, a few quick announcements. Rico 12 offers a variety of recovery resources, including other podcasts and social media communities. To explore more, you can visit us at rico12.com or check the chat and the show notes for links. I'll put some of these things in the chat here of the live meeting. They'll all be in the show notes. Rico 12 is self-supporting, and your contributions help us continue this message. Thank you to all our spearhead donors, past and present, especially this week to Audrey and Liza. Your support truly makes a difference. Thank you all. If you also would like to contribute, visit rico12.com/support or check the links in the show notes or the chat for one-time or monthly donation options. Every bit of support, financial or through word of mouth, helps us share these messages of recovery. Each week, we receive light and inspiration from our speakers. Their experience brings hope, meaning, worth, and growth to us as listeners. Now I'm going to welcome today's speaker, Troy O., and just share a little bit more about him so I can introduce him to you as an audience. Troy is a recovering sexaholic who's been participating in 12-Step since April of 2007. He joined SA in 2019 and has attended over 1,000 meetings. He has 10,000. He has 10 sponsees scattered around the world. Take it away, Troy. The floor is yours.
All right. Thank you very much, Justin. Really grateful to be here. Actually, just the type of addict that I am or person that I am, I do presentations for everything. So I am going to share my presentation here on the screen. So the main topic I want to talk about today is the four things every recovering addict should know. I want to start just by talking about my journey. And I want to preface this by saying, I might say things in a way or talk about my higher power in a way that's different than you. But I would just ask you to think about if I was speaking a different language and somebody was translating it, you wouldn't be offended, right? So I'm just going to ask you to translate what I say into your own spiritual language. So with that said, I just want to focus on a few moments from my past. I remember riding my bike down a little street by my friend's house. And on the ground, there was a magazine, a piece of a magazine. It was just a couple pages of a magazine folded up on the street. And I just stopped my bike and looked at it. And it was pornography. And I can't tell you the feelings that I had as a 12-year-old boy. It probably would have felt the same if I would have won the lottery. Like, I was just so excited. And it felt like manna falling from heaven for this young developing addict. Fast forward, I'm 18 years old, and I'm in a VHS, a movie rental shop. It was a huge one by my house. My parents were out of town. I was old enough to rent rated R movies, and this VHS store was huge. I mean, there are movies everywhere. For anyone who has never experienced what a VHS is, it's a tape that you put into a player to watch movies. This is how you used to watch movies before you could stream them. I walked around that movie store, I want to say, for over 3 hours, because I was trying to find, based on the covers of these VHS movies, which movie would probably have the most pornography or the most lustful stuff in it. And I was just really challenged. I'm like, I can't tell by the cover how bad this is going to be, because a lot of the movies were just really bad B movies, like not even a movie you would watch. But I just wanted to find the one that had the most lust in it. I would rent the movies, take them home, and literally just fast forward through the movies to the most lustful parts. And a frequent habit of mine was watching all the lustful parts and then like noting the time so I could go back if I wanted to act out. Um, Fast forward a bit longer, I'm in college. This girl that I had chased for quite a few years, tried to date her. She'd gotten married and moved away. Well, she moved back and was getting divorced. And after she got divorced, we started to date. And it got to the point where we were alone at her house. Her parents weren't there, and we could pretty much do anything. You know, at this point, I'm an adult. She's an adult, and I was like, I had chased this girl for so many years. This is the perfect. This is what I wanted, and I can't tell you how miserable I was at that moment, how lost I felt, and I'm really grateful that I got out of that relationship and out of that situation because it was not heading in a place. It turns out I didn't love her for a lot of years. I had lusted after her for a lot of years. Um, it was in April of 2007, as Justin said, that I started attending a 12-step group. This was a 12-step group with my church. And I remember writing in the cover of that, or on the title page of the manual that they use, I wrote my recovery date. And I should have the picture here, but just imagine a cover page of a recovery book that says April 7th of 2007, and it's crossed out, and then there's another date, and it's crossed out, and then there's another date, and it's crossed out. It took about 15 years of that program, and then in 2019 I got into SA, so another couple of years in SA before I really discovered that date actually doesn't really matter. All that matters is today. These 24 hours is the only time I can operate. And at this point, I'm not worried about how long I've been sober. Yesterday was my sobriety day. I've been sober 3 years. And I'm not worried about how long I'm going to be sober. That consumed me in my recovery for so many, like, I almost want to say decades. But today, it doesn't matter. All that I have is today. This is the only place I can operate is today. And I want to tell you about how I started to understand that I was in recovery and that it was working. It wasn't my sobriety date. It was the fact that when my phone rings, and it's a brother in recovery, I am so excited to answer that phone. I will literally just drop just about anything that I'm doing to pick up that call and talk to somebody in the program. And that's when I started to know that God had changed my heart and was changing my heart was the love for my brothers in this program had changed to that point where I looked forward to their calls and I literally like jump at the phone when they call. So that's a little bit about my story, where I've been, what it was like, and where I am now. So, one thing in recovery that we talk about a lot is ego deflation, and the program being a program of ego deflation. But we don't ever really, at least in no meeting that I've ever been in, and I've been in probably over 1,000 meetings in my recovery career, we don't talk about what ego is. So I wanted to kind of give it based on like my research, an understanding of what ego really is. So the ego it's your false self. It's a part of you that tries to protect you, but really it ends up keeping you stuck where you're at. It's not who you really are, but rather it's a mental image of yourself, and you've built it over time, and it includes pride, fear, insecurity, shame, that desire for control, and it needs to just be seen a certain way. That's what the ego is. And for a lot of us, I feel like our ego developed out of wanting to protect ourselves, and it started to construct itself based on what it thought it needed to do to keep us safe. But the reality is the ego is not on our side, and it doesn't have our best interests in mind. I don't know if any of you guys have seen Ratatouille. I'm throwing in the character that's named Ego, which I just love that about that movie. But the ego is constantly saying, I've got this, I'll handle it. Don't show any weakness. Don't let anyone see the real you. What is the ego versus who we truly are? The ego wants to hide flaws. It's always defensive. It obsesses over images and how others see us. It believes we're either the worst or the best. There's no in between. We're either the worst person or we're the best person. And it really fears being known. It always wants to hide. The true self and who we truly are seeks honesty, is teachable. It wants to focus on growth and change. It knows that we're just humans trying to do the best humaning we can. And it desires connection with others. In recovery, the ego says, I don't need help. I'm too far gone to be loved. If I just try harder, I can fix myself. I can't share that with anyone. And I know a lot of the sexaholics here can relate to this. Like, there's just some things that are so dark that I can't share that with anyone. And this is a direct quote that I got in the last few days from a member in the program. He didn't approve me sharing this, but I'm going to share it anyway because you don't know who it is. But he said, "The program seems too difficult for me. I tried my best, still failed, and I'm acting out." So why must that ego be deflated? Because it keeps us addicted to control. It paralyzes us with shame. And I want to stop and just say that has been one of the biggest features of my addiction and my struggle in recovery is shame. And I largely attribute that to I'm in a faith tradition my whole life that's very conservative. And I love my faith tradition. I'm still very active in it today. But I paralyzed myself with shame. I never felt worthy to do anything. Even if I got up in front of a congregation and spoke and shared, my testimony and my beliefs, and I had researched and just gave a beautiful presentation, and people came up after me and after I spoke and said how wonderful it was and how they were moved and they felt the Spirit. I could be in that moment, feeling so good, but then it's like, man, I just looked at porn the other day, and I don't want to stop, or I can't stop. Just that shame was just overwhelming to me, and it's just been always on my back for so much of my life, just never feeling worthy. Ego is also terrified to surrender anything. It doesn't want to share anything with anyone, and it would rather just pretend instead of healing. That's why recovery often talks about ego deflation at depth, not to destroy you, but to set you free. Because underneath the ego is the real self, the one God already loves and is ready to restore. Ego can turn to some really insidious thoughts. I've listed a couple. Some of these I can definitely say are my own thoughts. I should have figured this out by now. I've been in recovery for like 15 years. If I admit this one thing, I could lose everything. I am the worst. I am beyond help, even though I haven't gone off the deep end like others in recovery. I'm a different kind of worse because I've been religious this whole time. Even the old timers can't seem to help me. And those thoughts can become even more insidious. If I can't be admired, I'll settle for being pitied. If I can't control my life, I'll at least control my death. And if I can't escape shame, I'll just escape everything. And for me, what that came down to, specifically in the year 2019, I was struggling. I was relapsing so much. And honestly, like, suicide started to sound like the better option, the way to bring the least amount of shame on my family and loved ones. I had this concept that, if there was this button, and I just imagined this big red button, and all I had to do was push this button, and I would be erased from existence. And in my faith tradition, we believed in a life before this one and a life after this one. And I started to believe that if there was this button and I could push it, it would erase me completely from just ever existing. The question for me wasn't like, would I push the button? The question was, how fast could I push it? That's just how I felt. And I realize now that that was the ego. That was the ego and my inability to just deal with my life and the concept of my life that I had. So that was a dark time. You're probably saying, okay, Troy, you got really dark right there. I hope you have a point. I do. I want to talk about the four things that every recovering addict should know, in my opinion. Prepare yourself because your ego is about to get a gut punch. Number one is God exists. And I'll say all four of these things can be wrapped up into step two. God exists. This concept challenges the ego's core. It's the core illusion, which is I am all that there is. The ego honestly believes that the only thing that's important, the only thing that is itself. And this goes directly in the face of that. The ego says, I've got to figure this out by myself. But step two teaches me there is a power that's greater than me, and I don't have to be it. I don't have to be God. This truth just shatters self-sufficiency and it invites humility. It's really the first crack in ego's armor. Number two, God is my creator. This challenges the ego's belief that my worth is defined by my past, what I've done and what I am, what I've become. The ego says, I'm a mistake that tells me that I'm dirty and that I'm broken. But a creator doesn't make junk. This truth will really root your identity in divine intention, not in addiction, trauma, or shame. I'm not only what I've gone through, but I am a son of a loving God, is how I like to put it. It reclaims my true self of who I really, really am, and not all those false things that ego loves to cling to. Number three, God loves me perfectly where I am at. And this is such a hard thing, I think, especially for any addict. I only have, sexaholism as my reference. I can honestly say I've never even drank alcohol, not even coffee, just how I was raised. But I've got to imagine that other addicts experience this as well. That it's hard to believe, but this really is the ego's worst nightmare. Just perfect love. Some people would say unconditional love. The ego thrives on performance, image, and shame. That's what fuels the ego. But perfect love removes all fear, is what I believe. And if I'm already loved, then I don't have to perform, hide, or earn it anymore. This is the ultimate ego deflator. I am loved as I am, not as I should be. And number four, God loves me enough not to leave me this way. This prevents spiritual bypassing. It says, yes, God loves me where I am, but he also sees who you can become. And I'd say it's a very intentional part of his plan that he made me this way. He loves me perfectly wherever I'm at in the steps, wherever I'm at in life, but he doesn't want to leave me just this way, which is completely opposite to what the ego wants. The ego wants everything to stay the same. The ego wants control and doesn't want me to change. But God wants me to change, wants me to become what I can be. The ego either demands perfection or just completely indulges in self-pity. And I really realized that myself when as I really understood what pride was. Pride is, I want to be God. I want to put on God's mantle. I want to control everything. And my pendulum would swing that way where I'm prideful, and then I act out and I'm miserable, and then it swing. And I feel like at that point, I'm sitting in God's throne. I'm trying to play God. I'm trying to control everything. I want everything my way, and above all, I want sex the way that I want it. And then I act out, I relapse, and I feel horrible, and I swing the other way. But by swinging the other way, I end up in self-pity. And guess what? I'm also sitting on God's throne because I'm like, I want to feel bad for a long time. I want to feel horrible. I want to issue all the punishments and just issue the punishments on how bad I should feel. And in both cases, I'm sitting in God's throne. There's no in between. I'm either on God's throne trying to control my life or on God's throne trying to decide how miserable and horrible I should be. And I heard someone say that, suicide is like the ultimate resentment, is living out that ultimate resentment. So all these truths really align with step 6, becoming entirely ready and humbly asking for change. That's what those 2 mid steps, right? 12 steps, the middle is 6 and 7, and it's really becoming ready to change and making that request that you can change. I used to think that ego deflation was about just beating myself up and deflating ego that way. But I really learned it's not. It's about discovering who I really am beyond the shame, beyond addiction, beyond the lies that the ego told me that just kept me stuck. Step 2 gave me permission to believe not just in God, but in a God who wanted me to be well and a God that wants me back. And that is really what changed everything. And I have to say that, in those last few relapses that I had, the shame was just not there. I allowed guilt. I allowed myself to feel the guilt, to feel the mistake, but I could also stand up and say, I'm a beloved son of an all-powerful God. And he put me here so that I could learn and that I could grow. And what I'm learning and growing and, I think you need to go. Oops, somebody came off mute there. What I'm learning is that it's not about me at all. And that has literally changed everything for me. So what I've learned is that this mess, what I thought was a mess, a destruction, just a life falling apart, an inability to stay sober, all of that through God has become the message. And that's what I can share with others. And that's just the whole the whole mission. My new mission is just, rather than worrying about the mess and trying to clean up the mess, is turning the mess into a message. I just want to say I am so grateful for 12-step. It's changed my life. I remember coming into these rooms, and even in the first meeting, in the meetings that I attended, they had a facilitator and the people who were leading the meeting. And my first meeting, I'm like, okay, what do I need to do to be a facilitator? How can I help this? This is awesome. I was 2-stepping. I was going from like step 1 to step 12, not doing the work in between. That's just kind of who I am. And I came in just saying, this 12-step, what it needs to do is, I've got cancer, like remove the cancer so I can go on with my life. And it has become so much more than that. It has added so much depth and love to my life that I could have never imagined. It has literally taken the mess that I was making of my life, and it's turned it into a message that I could share with others. And I'm really grateful to have shared that message with you today. And I look forward if you have questions or anything to talk about. Back over to you, Justin.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Troy. I really appreciate that. And I love the presentation. So for those listening recorded, if you want to see the presentation, please send me an email at rico12pod@gmail.com. I'll get that out there. I'll also put the link to the presentation in the show notes of the podcast. I've posted it here in the chat also, but I'll do that again before we get finished. This is now the Q&A portion of the meeting. If you have a question for Troy, please put it in the chat. If you'd like to remain anonymous with that, Say anonymous, please. I won't read your first name. I'll just read your question. Or you can send me a direct message in the chat and I'll make it an anonymous question. Before we get to any questions that come in, Troy, you mentioned that in your first recovery book, you put your first date of sobriety, and then you just change it all over the place. It reminds me of the story of Bill W. as he's trying to recover. He'd take the family Bible out and he'd write a little note to Lois saying, "Hey, once and for all, this is my last time ever drinking on this date, Thanksgiving of 1934, or whatever it may be." Tell me about the intention, I mean, the purity of your intention, the reality of your intention as you did that, and two, the futility of doing those types of exercises. Got questions about addiction, recovery, or just life in general? Let's noodle it out together. Grab your big book, a pen, a highlighter, and a notepad, and join Nikki M and me, Justin B, on Rico 12 Noodle It Out with Nikki M. Each episode, we take real-life questions, ours, yours, and those from the recovery community, and dig deep into the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous to find real, practical solutions. So, if you're ready to do the work and apply the solution, tune in to Noodle It Out with Nikki M, streaming now on your favorite podcast platform.
Yeah. I guess first off, I just want to say I want to show people that book, because when I got married, I thought marriage was going to fix me. It didn't. 3 months after we were married, I started acting out and struggling again, and I pretty immediately told my wife. And at the time, we were moving back to the States. We'd lived in the Caribbean, and she bought me that book. And it's funny because the book sat in my trunk for months, and it bounced around and got ripped up and damaged. So the first time I go to a meeting, I've got this beat up book, and it looks like, oh, this guy's really working his program. But no, it's because I'd waited a year to to even start doing anything about it. And I think I walked into that meeting, started to wrap my head around what 12-step was, and then I'm like, oh, okay, sobriety date. That's how we track success. So I'm gonna write this down as declared it. Got into the program, going to be sober. 12 steps, 12 weeks of attending meetings, and we're good. And then I'm just going to become this like rock star success story for 12-step, and then crossing out those dates each time, writing a new date. The futility of it is like, whoa, this is way different. And I think really where I started to mourn, because I loved step 4. Like a lot of people get stuck on step 4. I'm like, no, finally something I can do. Like the first 3 steps, it's like, okay, what do I do now? Step 4, you gave me a big project. I can do a project. So do step 4, surrender it with step 5. And then I hit step 6, and I'm like, wait a minute, like you want me to change everything? No, I just want to change my addiction. I don't want to change myself. Like step 6 has always been one of my biggest struggles, because I just wanted to change what I needed to for the addiction, and then realizing that the addiction, pornography, masturbation, acting out, lust, all those things were just the smoke. I had this realization, like as I get into SA, this is like 2019, 2020. I'm like, man, I'm like a firefighter that has been spraying water at smoke for like years. It felt like decades at that point, and wondering why the fire's not going out, because I really wasn't working on the core of it. So I hope that kind of answers your question of the futility.
Yeah, thank you, Troy. And I love that imagery of the firefighter spraying water at smoke and not hitting the fire. Why is the fire not going out? I'm knocking down the smoke everywhere. Well, I think I am, but it just keeps coming back. I love that. Thanks for that imagery there. That opens my eyes a lot. Got a question here from Chris. Chris says, hey, well, first he says, thanks for sharing your journey. You have a powerful message. Can you share about your practice of prayer and meditation? What does your step 11 life look like?
Yeah, so in the last couple of days, it's actually changed quite a bit. I won't I won't come off blur here, but I set up a little table over here in my office. I've got a beautiful view out to my backyard. Um, that table is dedicated. There are no screens allowed over there. Um, that is like my meditation, my work table. That's where I'm going to sit down and dedicate, what I work on. I start every morning with prayer. I start every morning trying to do exercise or some kind of physical, keeping myself strong physically or healthy physically. I study scriptures. I love to read the white book. I think the big book. I love when I'm working out on my exercise bike. I love to read the big book because as you're reading stories in the Alcoholics Anonymous big book, like it doesn't matter how hard my workout is. Like I can focus on those stories. If I'm, hearing someone else's story, I can get through my workout reading the big book. But I love white book. Scriptures are indispensable for me. Um, Prayer, like I said, every morning. I use WhatsApp for communicating with my sponsees. So we're sending messages back and forth. I'm usually trying to get up to date there on a daily basis. And I just have recently, in the last couple of days, one of my sponsees uh, told me about two-way prayer. I don't know if you've ever talked about that on your podcast. I won't really dive into it, but two-way prayer is like my new favorite thing for staying tuned in. And I guess my morning devotion and what I do in the morning really is just helping me tune in so that I can hear God's voice and know what I need to do today. And usually that's who I need to help today. So thanks, Chris.
Yeah, Troy, thank you. And yes, we've had, well, Father Bill W., who is the current day guru of two-way prayer. He's been a multi-speaker. He's spoken on
Awesome.
Rico 12 a few times. And yeah, two-way prayer. I've got my two-way prayer desk right here. It is my lifeline. I love that. And I love that you've set up a desk for that. All right. Next question today comes from Matthew. Matthew says, I need to eat, but it's out of proportion. I need healthy romantic relationships, but my thoughts are not balanced. I need to drink, but I drink for the effect. I'm only aware of any of these because I have an ego. If I didn't have an ego, would I have the spiritual self awareness to recognize my need for a power greater than myself? Or would I simply exist like any other creature without the ability to seek God? Can I find gratitude that God gave me the gift of an ego to know I need to be right sized? So basically, does an ego need to die? Is basically what that says. Or will I?
Yeah, I think, all I kind of really heard in that statement, and I apologize because I'll do this to my sponsees too. They'll send like this giant question, and I will reply and say, I read your question. What really stands out to me were the pronouns. I, me, I, me, I, me, I. And I'm like, I think that's the problem is the self. Uh, what about everyone else? Like, let's talk about other people. I'll let you in on a little secret. It's a big secret, little secret. I can't be sober without sponsees. It's not possible. There's no way I could stay sober without my sponsees. I love them. It helps me move out of myself. And it's really funny because they'll ask for advice and I'll give them advice. And then I'm like, dang it, now I have to do that because I just told my sponsee to do it. Um, as long as all you're thinking about is me, I couldn't stay sober. Um, this is a program of lust and self to God and others. So hope that helps.
Thank you, Troy. Yeah. Hopefully that provides an answer there. Next question is an anonymous question from one of our participants here. Says or asks, what is spiritual bypassing? And also, this person's been sitting on their fourth step for a long time. Any tips on that?
Yeah, spiritual bypassing. Um, I guess the way that I think about it, and this is really just something I've recently thought about, is my brain tries to solve all my problems, and my brain and my thoughts and my mental power thinks that it has all the solutions, and it tries to wield spiritual power. It tries to pick it up like a sword and a shield and use it. And it's not. It doesn't work that way. So I think spiritual bypassing is I'm going to try and my brain's going to try and pick up spiritual tools and use them, or those kinds of things. I think there are just things that your brain can't explain. Your brain can't understand. And if you're trying to just bypass spiritual and use your brain, that to me is spiritual bypassing. But you probably want to go Google it. I'm trying to remember the exact definition of it. Maybe just go Google it or ask AI to give some examples of it. But that's typically how I frame it, is bypassing things that need to be spiritual by trying to overrule them with mental. My brain is always trying to rule everything. My ego is always trying to rule everything. And spiritual things can only be heard and understood and processed and felt spiritually.
Yeah, thanks for walking through that. Appreciate that, Troy. All right, next question comes from Candace. Candace says, "Thank you so much, Troy. That was really enlightening. I'd love to understand how what you shared shows up in real life. Could you maybe share a practical example? For example, like what a normal day looks like for you as someone living in recovery and practicing ego deflation through the 12 steps." Hey, Spearheads, if you're looking to dive deeper into the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous with people who live the solution, then you won't want to miss RICO 12 Big Book Roundtable. Join David G., Nikki M., and me, the moderator Justin B., 3 recovered addicts from multiple fellowships, as we break down the big book line by line. In each 30-minute episode, we share our experience, strength, and hope in a real, raw, and practical roundtable discussion. So, if you are ready to learn and apply what you learn, tune in to RICO 12 Big Book Roundtable on your favorite podcast platform.
Yeah. So I think it starts out by sharing, for me, just having to call people and surrender the littlest things. Like just today, I called my sponsor and had to surrender some kind of embarrassing things. I'm doing well spiritually and having a great day, and then boom, I see an image that just destroys me. And I've found that happens like the further I am away from lustful things and my old habits, that if something comes specifically across my screen, that's usually how it comes up. It can destroy me. Like a picture that I wouldn't even have noticed before just destroys me. And I've got to call and surrender that. And I've got to especially call and surrender the resentment. The resentment is the fuel for that fire. I can surrender all the lustful things and those things that come across. But if I'm holding a resentment, and that's usually towards like my wife or people close to me, that is just going to continue to burn. So I've got to surrender when I'm angry at my wife, when I'm resentful, when I'm mad at my kids, when I have outbursts of anger. That's something, I've got 4 kids. It's something I deal with when things are just not going my way. I think parenting is like the definition of parenting is like things not going your way. I would like a house that's a lot cleaner than it is. I just have to surrender that. So reaching out to others, surrendering the embarrassing things is big. Picking up the phone. I do my best to answer the phone anytime someone calls me. Someone called me right during this meeting. Can't answer it right now, but I'll give him a call back. Just there's time. So I'm kind of blessed because I'm a consultant, so I bill by the hour. So I have a really flexible schedule, and there's some days I take 7 phone calls, easily 7 phone calls, and some of those might be half-hour long phone calls. And I just have to let go and say, God, you give me the money, you provide for me, you always have. I assume that the work you want me to do is helping whoever calls me. So I'm going to do it and just trust that it's going to work out. And so far it has. So, yeah, that's a big part. I always attend the Portland SA meeting at noon. I try and host and chair whenever I can, do the readings, and it's so much in just even the little things. Like if I'm in a meeting, I've got to close down every other app, or just turn off my phone. And so people who attend that meeting with me just notice how much I'm like sitting like this, just like holding my hands. So I'm not typing, I'm not clicking on anything else. I'm being present. So just trying to be present in the meetings and in the phone calls. I've got a chair right here in my office. If somebody calls, sometimes I just turn off the computer and I go sit down because I'm like, they need and deserve my full attention. So hopefully that gives you some insights.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Troy. And that gives me some great ideas because oftentimes, if I'm taking a call, if I'm sitting in front of my computer and I'm at work, I my attention is divided, and I don't give either the attention it needs. Thanks for sharing that idea of stepping away and sitting in a chair away from my screen. So good. All right, we have another question, and I'm going to get into the meat of this question from Mohammed. He says, "I right now I can't organize my sleep or do anything in life. I'm neglecting my studies. Don't know how to get out of this cycle. How do you? Troy, if you're ever in a place where you're just like life is lifing too much, and you just can't get a handle on things, how do you go about that surrender process, that giving that process over to God or whatever that looks like in your life?"
Yeah, good question. So I guess the first thing you need to know about me is that I over organize. Like for example, I have a spreadsheet. Every time I go fishing with the kids, I have like 15 columns of things that I record for each fishing trip. Where did we go? How long did we fish? Like what did we do? Like I'm very organized, and I found that just simplification, like literally just looking at what I'm doing with my time, and then is this in line with what God wants me to do? Um, Someone might say that to me in a phone call, and I'm like, well, okay, start telling me other things. How much do you watch TV shows? How much do you, read the news? Like, I need to see the full picture. You're kind of saying all these things, but you have 24 hours a day. I have 24 hours a day. Like, we really need to understand what we're doing with it. Well, yeah, I do watch football a lot. Okay, well, is that really where you need to be spending your time? Or the honesty usually comes out because yeah, we all have 24 hours in a day. What I've done recently, I have my computer, I had a second screen, I removed the second screen. I'm down to one screen. I removed like everything else off my desk that I don't need. I don't have a lot of email accounts open during the day and while I'm working. I have just simplified down, and I keep simplifying. I'm really happy to say, knock on wood or praise God, I haven't been to a news website in like over 3 weeks, and I haven't listened to any news podcasts in the last 3 weeks. And oh my gosh, everything is still okay. I started to realize that when I get up and I look at the news, like 9 times out of 10, or maybe 5 times out of 10, something upsets me. And that just sets the tone for my day. And I kind of got sick of that. I'm like, why am I letting this news? To me, I have put news like almost in the category of entertainment. Because if I start focusing on news and how everyone thinks the world is going to fall apart, I stop realizing that, hey, this is God's plan and it's going perfectly according to his plan. And I can just accept that. So cutting out so much of that noise and really stripping my life down to the things that are most important. Like what's going to matter in 1,000 years? Like what if I do something today is actually going to matter in 1,000 years? And that comes down to usually being there for someone else. And it's hardest to be there for those closest to me, for my wife and kids. But yeah, just really trying to focus on the basics of what's most important, and then just letting go. I'm not in charge, and just letting God be in charge of my life.
All right, Troy. So this is a nosy question on my part. You said you haven't watched, listened to, read whatever the news for about 3 weeks. When was it that you started your two-way prayer practice? Does it coincide with that a little bit?
No,
Oh,
I've only been
okay.
doing that. Day five. I'm only
Oh,
day
wow.
five on that. But
Yeah.
it's probably that quiet and that being able to focus and not do the news that God's like, okay, he's ready for two-way prayer. Let's give him
Yeah.
two-way prayer.
That's so cool because, I am pretty similar. It's actually been a couple of years since I've gone into a news website and the reason why is because I was guided into a prayer. Put the news away. Stop. It's killing you. Anyways, no, this is good stuff. All right. So, you quoted something from a sponsee that said something here recently to you saying, hey, you know what, I tried the program, but I'm still like acting out. It doesn't work for me. That is almost word for word that a sponsee told me this morning as I was talking to one of my sponsees. And let me ask you, how did you approach that with that sponsee when that person said that to you?
I sent him the link to this meeting and said I'm going to speak and had you in mind. And I also told him I'm going to quote you, but I'm not going to use your name. He's not a sponsee. He's just someone in the program that I've just recently started speaking with. And I don't know if there's ever a time I feel like someone needs tough love, it's when they say the program's not working, because I'm like, well, tell me what you're doing. And as we kind of dig in, it's like, oh, you actually didn't even try the program. So it's not that the program isn't working, it's that you're not working it. And then I just kind of share my testimony of why it works for me and how it's worked for me and making that time. I mean, to me, I heard someone say in a meeting, like anything you put ahead of the program is the first thing you're going to lose. So I might share something like that. Like you stand to lose a lot. And you stand to gain a whole lot more if you work this program and really give it a try. And I just come to realize, it's really not up to me. I don't think anything that I say is what's going to fix the person. I think it's between them and God, but all I can do is share my experience. And I might say, hey, it took me, I hate saying like, yeah, it took me like 15 years to get sober because that really discourages people. But I'll just say, it took me a long time to get sober, but I'm so grateful I'm where I'm at and I'm on the path that I'm on because it is a path.
Thank you for sharing that, Troy. All right. Another question. Do you have any feedback or advice on staying in the solution while on a vacation or trip out of your home city, state, or country? This person struggles during on those trips most. And, what is your, I guess, process when you're going on vacation or, heading somewhere on your own?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, if you put a gun to my head and said, you can only do three or even one recovery thing a day, like what would you boil it down to? To me, the white book, reading the white book every day, you can get it on your phone. You can print out the pages. Just reading that whether it's scriptures or the white book or the big book or whatever, that one that you can just really connect with and helps you tune in quickly. I think it's just important to make that a part of your travels, and it's got to be in your luggage. Maybe it's the first thing you pack, and then finding ways to connect. I mean, I don't travel a lot, just to be honest, but when I do, it's like, hey, is there a meeting into where the place I'm going? Because it's so fun to drop into meetings, and it's always funny because I dropped into a meeting, trying to remember where it was at, but they're like, "Oh, are you a newcomer? Is this your first time?" And I'm like, "No, this is probably like time number 1050." So people just love to have a fresh voice and someone coming in with perspective. That's really important. And then just being like, okay, I've got my normal routine every morning. I get up and I do this. Like that's totally got flipped on its head. But can I move that to some other time in the day? Can I do it in another way? And I think you've just got to think ahead. Where am I going? What am I going to be doing? What's my priority? What are my boundaries? What can I do? I've had many a phone call from people who are in hotel rooms, just like, I want to turn on the TV and I want to go to this station, or, I'm sure they have a pornography on the TV. And it's like, well, I've heard of guys taking the remote to the front desk. Just take your remote to the front desk and say, I don't need this. This is for room, whatever. Put it back in there when I'm gone. Sometimes drastic times call for drastic measures.
Hey, Rico 12 Spearheads. If our recovery resources have helped you, please consider a donation. Your financial support, as well as your word of mouth support, keeps Rico 12 running and reaching the man who is still sick. Donate today at rico12.com/support or check the show notes for PayPal and Venmo links. Every contribution helps carry the message. Thanks for being a Rico 12 spearhead. Yeah, I like that. Much like this person who asked the question, my addiction doesn't take a vacation. In fact, when I go on vacation, it seems to flare up. And so I need to make sure that even on vacation, even on weekends, even on holidays, I am doing what I do every other day to make that happen, because it doesn't take a break. In fact, it's doing push-ups the whole time I'm working my recovery. So yeah, I love that. So Troy, before we wrap up here, one more question for you. Do you have any? Are you open to outreach? If anybody wants to get a hold of you, are you okay if I share your email with them if they send me an email?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Email's fine. You can give them my phone number as well.
Okay.
I might say just text ahead. I'm on WhatsApp, just so I know it's a recovery call or person.
Okay. Perfect. So if anybody wants to get a hold of Troy, please send an email to rico12pod@gmail.com and I can get you connected with Troy through there, so we aren't putting this out there on public airwaves. All right. Do you have any final words of wisdom before we close up here, Troy?
Yeah, I love to see the people here. If there's anything I want you to know, it's that you are a beloved child of an all-powerful God. And this program, it's just the scaffolding. It's building that relationship with him. And yeah, you have an opportunity to live a life beyond what you can imagine. So just lay it at his feet. And just accept that love. And it's just one day at a time. Literally, I don't care about my sobriety date anymore. I remember getting to like a year sober and it's like, wait, it doesn't get easier. Like, this isn't easier. I still have to deal with all this. And once I got past that, I'm just like, yeah, one day at a time. And just sorry for just one more moment, but just telling my journey, in the beginning, I just made this commitment. It's like, okay, I'm going to get in the program. I'm going to work the steps. God, I'll do that for you and for me, and it's going to be awesome. And then, I can just live this amazing life. And pretty quickly, I'm like, oh, this is going to take more than 12 weeks. Okay, I'm going to do this. If it takes a couple of years to do this program and get sober, I'll do it, God. And a couple of years go by, and I'm like, okay, if this takes 10 years, I'm going to do it. And then pretty quickly came like the 20 years. If this takes 20 years of doing this program to get sober, God, I'll do it. Like, I'll commit that to you. And then just in tears, I just say, okay, God, I get it. The rest of my life, I will work this program for the rest of my life. I commit to you. I will do it. I will always be in 12-step. I will always help people. And I just came to this conclusion that's not enough. And I'm like, how can that not be enough? That's the rest of my life I'm willing to offer to this program. And the message that came back from God was, I just want today. Just give me today. And that changed my heart and helped me realize it's not about a commitment of X amount of days or years. It's turning my heart over to him today and listening. And when I listen, there's always somebody that I need to reach out to. There's always someone who needs help. And that's been the beauty of it. So thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Troy, for an amazing Rico 12 speaker meeting. I really appreciate your willingness to come on and share. If anybody out there still has questions or would like to continue this conversation, you can join our WhatsApp community. Email me at rico12pod@gmail.com. I'll get you added there. If you haven't already done so yet, please consider rating and reviewing the podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It's a powerful way to work step 12 and share recovery with others. This recording will be up live within a couple of hours from now on pretty much every podcast platform out there. Next Friday, we're going to hear from another first-time Rico 12 speaker, Anna B. Her topic will be using humor in recovery, and she sent me this really cool book just in this last week that she's got. It's recovery limericks. She's written a ton of limericks specific to recovery. So it should be an entertaining and fun conversation next week. So come on back for that. And so stay updated via WhatsApp or our email list. If you're not yet subscribed to the email list, you can email me once again at rico12pod@gmail.com, and we'll get you added to that. And so now let's close up with the 11th step prayer of St. Francis that Troy will say for us.
My favorite prayer, but I don't have it memorized.
No worries.
This is how imperfect I am, everybody. Okay, here we go. Lord, make me a channel of thy peace, that where there is hatred, I may bring love, that where there is wrong, I may bring the spirit of forgiveness, that where there is discord, I may bring harmony, that where there is error, I may bring truth, that where there is doubt, I may bring faith, that where there is despair, I may bring hope, that where there are shadows, I may bring light, that where there is sadness, I may bring joy. Lord, grant that I may seek rather to comfort than to be comforted, to understand than to be understood, to love than to be loved. For it is by self-forgetting that one finds. It is by forgiving that one is forgiven. It is by dying that one awakes to eternal life. Amen.
Amen. Remember, everybody, there is one that has all power. That one is God. May you find God now. Keep coming back, and when you do, come all the way in, sit all the way down. Let's trudge this road of happy destiny together. Work it. You are worth it.
I've seen stars fall from above. I've fallen in and out of love. I've been high and I've been low. Now I know I just can't do this on my own. I've seen a boy become a man. He got lost without a plan. He's so far away from home. Now I know that I just can't do this on my own. Your arms surrounding me. Your touch is grounding me. No longer searching for purpose all alone. 'Cause now I know that I just can't do this on my own. I'm looking for the words to say. You make the world a better place, and I can call that place my home. 'Cause now I know that I just can't do this on my own. Your arms surrounding me. Your touch is grounding me. No longer searching for purpose all alone. 'Cause now I know that I just can't do this on my own. So let me see just what you need to set you free, so we can be. I saw stars fall from above. I fell in and out of love. I got high and I fell low. But now I know that I just can't do this on my own. just can't do this on my own. I just can't do this on my own.